All right. All right, I guess we can get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining the Immersion Day today. Today, we're going to talk about how Idexcel's AIDE can help public sector organizations. So the agenda starts off with a quick introduction to Idexcel's and its services, Idexcel and its services. I will then introduce you to the different speakers who are with us today. And we will start with the first topic, which will be presented by Raj Kadiyala from Amazon Web Services. He's going to talk about Amazon Techtrax for companies in public sectors. After which, Anand will present us with Idexcel's AI services approach for digital transformation. And finally, we have a demo of Idexcel's AIDE, which is built on top of Amazon Techtrax and understand potential use cases of AIDE framework for your organization. And just for a quick company overview, Idexcel is a professional services and technology solutions provider headquartered in Herndon, Virginia, with over 20 years of experience implementing complex technologies. We are an AWS exclusive partner specializing in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data services, and cloud services for both commercial and public sector customers. We have over 130 AWS certified cloud practitioners in our team and hold various competencies within the AWS ecosystem. So Idexcel is focused on supporting the AWS cloud. We are an advanced AWS partner and AWS reseller. We achieved AWS competencies in migration, DevOps, financial services, and expecting 2 more by the end of this year. We recently obtained consulting partner status for AWS Redshift. We are also recognized as a public sector partner with authorization to resell and service the AWS GovCloud. We are also a preferred partner for the Well-Architected Framework or WAF program and Immersion Day partner. So these are the 4 core areas we specialize in with extensive expertise in migration, machine learning, cloud native and data modernization services. Now, I will introduce you to our speakers a bit. Let's get to know them. I am pleased to introduce you to our guest, Raj Kadiyala from Amazon Web Services. Raj has over a decade experience in AI and machine learning, and he is a senior AI ML evangelist working at AWS, helping customers to implement machine learning workloads on AWS. Our next speaker is Anand, has over 22 years of overall IT experience and is currently our VP in digital transformation, leading efforts related to emerging technologies practice like AI, data analytics, and cloud practice. Anand loves hiking, and he ventures out in the beautiful Pacific Northwest when he is not at work. And of course, last but not the least, Viswanath is Idexcel's principal data scientist, leading the AI and automation practice at Idexcel. He will be leading the last section of the presentation. So before we get started with the presentation with Raj, we will set up a quick poll for you. You should see it on your screen now. We will give everybody a few seconds to answer. So first question, are you using a data extraction solution for your organization? So yes or no. I'll give everyone a few more seconds to respond. All right, a couple more seconds. I'll go ahead and end the poll, and it looks like over 90% answered yes for this polling question. So I'll go ahead and move you over to Raj, who will begin his presentation. Take it away, Raj.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, everybody. I'm Raj Kadiyala. I'm with AWS Public Sector, and I specifically work with partners. My goal is to help customers implement AI/ML in their journeys as it relates to public sector. With that said, today's topic is Amazon Techtrax in public sector. And without moving too fast here, I'll try and stop at every point and give you some context around where the different features of Techtrax are used within public sector and where Techtrax sit within our AI ML stack. And at points, I might stop and refer some publicly referenceable customer references, and I'll speak about some reference architectures, how you can implement Techtrax in your day-to-day operations and implementations. And then we'll end with any questions that you might have. But with first, where does AWS ML stack and Techtrax fit together, right? So at AWS, we like to think of machine learning in 3 layers of a stack. At the top, we have our AI services, which is where you don't train, manage any models. We do that, and we expose that to you as an API. Techtrax sits in the text component of it. It's right here. You can see Techtrax right there. That's anything that relates to text. They're all grouped together, comprehend, translate, and Techtrax right there. In the middle, we have Amazon SageMaker. This is for data scientists, developers that want to build, train, deploy, and manage machine learning models. It's an end-to-end platform to do that. At the bottom, we have our frameworks and our infrastructure. Here's where expert practitioners, PhDs, and the like, who wants to start from an algorithm level and experiment and just want the really powerful instances, they usually stay here. But with that said, how are documents processed today in general in public sector or otherwise, right? There's a lot of manual processing. There is a lot of OCR and then rules and template-based extraction. The problem with it is these are error prone. Templates can break very easily. OCR cannot handle more complex extractions. And then it's time consuming and expensive to involve human to read through a document and extract everything in it and write it down or type it down, what have you, right? So what Amazon Techtrax does is it eliminates the manual effort. It doesn't require you to have any machine learning experience. It lowers the cost as you're eliminating a lot of manual effort and human involvement here. And then you can extract these documents more accurately and in a flexible fashion, whether you want a specific set of the text within the documents, a specific form or specific table or specific page, you get to choose that and have that flexibility. So Techtrax comes with 4 different APIs today. There's text extraction API. It's just when you want to extract all the text and you don't care where the text comes from. Second one is table extraction. You don't care about all the text in the document. Maybe you care about specific tables within the document, and that's when you use table extraction. And then you have forms, like tax forms, or like in public sector, forms are everywhere, right? So if you want to extract any typed up or written documents that are in a form format, you can use a form extraction API. And finally, we have our Invoices and Receipts API. This is very well suited for building applications like Concur, for example. I mean, not that you want to do that, but there might be a use case where you want to extract text from invoices and receipts for maybe, let's say, a court case or for audit purposes or something like that. And this is where Invoices and Receipts API comes into play. It actually understands that that it's an invoice and then extracts the text in a format that's easily processable right after that. Text extraction in Amazon Techtrax is very simple, right? You provide a page with text in it, or provide a number of pages with text in it. Techtrax goes to work and extracts that text out of it for you. It also has support for multi-column detection. As an example, on the left-hand side here, we have a document. It's got 2 columns, a title or a header, and a page number. Techtrax identifies all those different components, and it starts to extract the text when you make the call to the API. The output comes in 3 different groupings: a page grouping, a line grouping, and a word grouping, right? So as an example, in this case, we have a line here from the page that's been identified in the left-hand side, and then we have a word washed right? Like that is the hierarchy of your extraction process. Now, why is this relevant? So we have a number of public sector customers that have documents that are old that they want to transcribe. There are reports that they wanted to extract text from. And in all of those cases, when you're extracting text, it's good to know what page number it came from, what context that it belonged to, whether or not there is something relevant for me in there, right? This grouping allows you to look at it globally, locally, and much more fine-grained to the word level. Next, we have the table extraction. In the table extraction, you get a page and a table and a cell, right? It's pretty intuitive. You have a table, every table has multiple cells, and each cell would have certain values within it. So for each block, the response will be a text, a confidence score, and a block relationship, like cells within a table. So this could be, and as a visual example here, a previous employment history table that I see on the left-hand side. You have 5 columns here, and the output would look like this. It will have a page number, or this is the content of this particular page. I see a table. Within the table, I see the cell, and within the cell, I see these words. Words are logically grouped by the cell that they belong to, even though there might be multiple words within that cell. Yeah, that way you get the understanding that all of this came from one particular cell. So within public sector, we have customers that have, like, for example, could be a court document, right? So a court document that lists out events, or like, a table of reports and table of documents that it has. So these are all most of the time scanned in and put into a database or put into storage, right? They don't necessarily have the understanding what's contained within each of these tables at a click of a finger, right? So in those scenarios, what we've seen is customers wanting to extract this and store it as such within the RDS or within another database. So they can easily go and say, on this particular report, I see these 5 or 6 tables, and these tables have these values, and these are stored this way. So I can actually go and query and find the exact information I'm looking for, versus having to shuffle through a bunch of documents all at once. And this is being used in more than one public sector organization, right? End customer organization. The likes of all major public sector organizations have forms and tables with them, and they use this API a lot. The next one is the form extraction API. Here, forms are very complex, right? You can create a template for a form, but like they're very complex in the sense you might have many fields, and not all the time people answer every single field. There are some optional fields. There are some fields that people answer, some they leave blank, and then some they scribble through, right? But it is very important to be able to extract this digitally and store this as a key value pair. So each form field is considered a key, and the response from the customer or response from the end user is considered a value, right? So you get that key value pairing when you run a form through Amazon Techtrax, and as such, you will have that confidence score, page number, block relationship, that kind of stuff, right? So this is also very broadly used within public sector. We have some major state and local governments using this particular API to digitize or digitally transform their stacks and stacks of storage that have scanned documents within them. And always almost starts with like a need for finding what happened in the past. Like think about a local DCFS, like Department of Child and Family Services of some kind, that has to collect all these forms for different children and family services. Think about court cases where there is a lot of forms to be filled out, or forms that have been filed prior. Think about like, major organizations like banks and like, SECs and things like that, of filings. They contain a lot of forms that need to be extracted. And all of these cases, we have partners and customers working with them and trying to implement Techtrax for digitizing a lot of those forms that have been stored today. Here's an example of Form API. As you can see on the left-hand side, it's a simplified version of it. You have a full name, date of birth, and gender. One of them is a radio button. Other one is actually a typed in field. Other one could be click and select the date or something like that that could be embedded into a PDF. Regardless, when this is stored, Techtrax goes through it, looks at the full name field and says, okay, I see first, middle, and last name as form fields, extracts that and corresponding values filled out. It also has a date of birth, like month, date, and year. It extracts that into a separate set, and then similarly with gender. Now, with this, you can actually go and say, find me the form where John Doe has filled out on 01/1971. So I can go and look at what all the relevant things that were entered into that form. So that's the power of it. It's like, once you extract the text, that's step one. However, step two, step three would be, how can you take that data and build insights into it, right? So, or extract insights from it. And then we have our invoices and receipts. Here is where you can look at an invoice that or a receipt that you got from a restaurant or like from a hotel stay or what have you. And a lot of the times this is relevant in public sector because this is mostly used for audit purposes, but there's nothing stopping you from building a robust expense processing application using this particular API. You could find summary fields, subtotal, tax, total, other things, sold items or like tips or what have you, right? And here is an example on the left-hand side from a Whole Foods Market receipt that we have, and it was able to identify the vendor, the net sale, how the payment was made, what the tax was, and what the complete total was, and the item itself is a pizza slice right there, right? All of that was extracted from that picture on the left-hand side. Now, it only supports English today. You cannot use it in other languages, but it's a start for us to give customers and a way to extract forms like invoices and receipts. But in the future, we would have support for other languages coming in. We do also have handwriting extraction, and I'll say it with some caveat. Handwriting extraction, regardless of what service you use, needs to be used very carefully, needs to have a human in the loop with this A2I we provide as a part of AWS platform and machine learning services. The problem with text, the handwriting extraction is, in here you have somebody that wrote it very well, but it's not always the case. Sometimes people scribble. I can't read my doctor's handwriting at all, right? Sometimes it's amazing that, especially for some of us that came here from India, we used to get our prescriptions, handwritten prescriptions from the doctors. You can never read it, but the pharmacist is able to read it, right? But that's just an extreme example. But the point here is, while we provide a handwriting recognition API with Techtrax, it needs to be used carefully. You need to have a human validation in place to be able to accurately and with higher confidence determine what the text in the handwriting is that's been translated or extracted over. It's only supported in English today, handwritten, and also the Invoices API. But in general, if you were to use Techtrax, it supports English, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. All use Roman alphabets. Now, for regulatory requirements, sensitive documents, hard to read documents, which I've noticed noted in the handwriting section, you do want to have a human in the loop for review. What this service does is provides you a way to identify a number of people that you want to review the documents or review the outcoming predictions from the API. So anything that has low confidence interval, it's not 90% or 95% confident, then what you do is you ask these humans to look at them and say, hey, is what the API said correct or not? If not, provide the value, send it to the end customer, and then provide the feedback to the API so it can get better at doing this the next time. And this is very important to have in your pocket, especially when you're using Techtrax. because some scanned documents are hard to read even with a human eye. They'll be missing a bunch of text, and a human can read between the lines. So it's very important to have that. It's very important service to use with Techtrax, and we strongly recommend it. Here is the workflow for how that works, right? So you would have a client application that sends a document to Techtrax. Techtrax extracts the text. Higher confidence intervals are sent directly to client application. Low confidence predictions are sent for human review to A2I. They're consolidated using consolidation algorithms. Results are stored in Amazon S3, and then you decide how you want to surface those results to the end application or the client application, right? So whether there's a logic that says send it to the client application or don't. Now I'll talk about a number of use cases that are referenceable. Some of these will not have customer names to them because we're not allowed to name the customer. So we'll talk in much broader strokes there. First customer we have is Broadridge. Broadridge, their work is to extract data from SEC filings, especially the proxy voting forms. And they want to look at the board of directors, the length of their tenure, ESG proposals, and other things, right? And the solution was to use Amazon Techtrax for extracting that text from the documents, and use Amazon Comprehend to identify the key names and entities and organizations, any sort of and names are also considered personally identifiable information, and Comprehend provides that API. So they were able to use those two together to take this process from being manual one that involved 160 people to turning it into more automated process and reducing all of that effort. Next, we have NIB, is a health insurance group in Australia. While this is not quite public sector, I wanted to mention this for the reason that this work is very relevant to Medicare, Medicaid, any HHS, or anything related to public health within the US, where there is a lot of forms, there's a lot of text to be processed. So what NIB did is they basically had an application that allowed you to upload documents via mobile apps, and then they used Techtrax to extract all of the text from it and speed up the claims processing, right, resulting in great customer experience. When a customer makes a claim, they want their claims to be processed faster, right? So the taking a form that's otherwise not scanned and the text extraction not done could take longer because a human would have to take a look at it and then approve it and verify all that information. So this process allows them to automate a lot of validations they would otherwise have to do manually. And at the bottom here is a quote from the NIB, Matthew Finch, head of emerging technology, and he was saying that internally our crime press are actually able to focus on claims, and that might be more challenging or need more time. They don't need to spend time on manually transcribing the information, manually typing in the fields required, out of the more simple claims, right? So essentially, they're not doing any of this today because of using Techtrax with it. Next, I'm personally involved in this directly. We have a major state and local government organization that's building a POC with AWS partners to do document separation from scanned documents. Now imagine imagine a court case, or imagine another situation where you're supposed to file 20 or 30 reports, and they're all going to one single stack and get scanned as such. However, either during the process or later, you want to be able to immediately get to a point that's more relevant to you. And these reports could span up to 1,000 pages, right? In general, with like a whole bunch of supporting documentation, the reports and this and that. So there needs to be a way, they wanted a way to separate these documents, index them, and store them within AWS, Kendra or Elasticsearch, for example, so they can quickly search for the relevant documents and the relevant information. So the complexity with the document start and stop is you have to understand where one document ends and other one starts. And not always there is a clear separation between them. They could flow from one to the other. So you want to look at that. Title pages, the page numbers, the form itself, the text in the form, and have a logic that says, here is this form ending and here is this form starting, right? And that is the complexity with the overall solution. But this is a major POC that we are currently executing. I have gone through a few iterations within public sector. So what the services that we used in this case were Amazon Techtrax, AWS Lambda, S3 for storage, and DynamoDB for storing those key value pairs from the forms, and in other partner built solutions on top of AWS. Next, searchable federal bids and proposals. We have another partner that actually built a POC. At the time of the preparation of this slide, they were still building it, but right now they've completed the POC. The goal here is to you have lots of federal bids and proposals, and then changes to those documents that come up time and again. So in all those cases, they want to be able to easily find the relevant documentation and relevant changes to a existing proposal or existing bid, or any other extensions they might get, any other additional information required on the bid that they want. They wanted to be able to quickly find a way to get to that. So instead of, they wanted to focus on building a solution that other customers can actually consume as a product. So they built this POC with that in mind, and were able to successfully demonstrate using Techtrax, Comprehend, and Amazon Kendra. They're able to search and find the documents much quicker than going through and finding Command F and finding words, or trying to understand what other documents that may have been put out by the federal government agencies that they may have missed. So it's kind of compilation and searching and indexing all in one place. Here is all the other Techtrax customers that we have that are actively using Techtrax for many of their use cases. And you can see some of the big logos, some of the ones that I just referenced here also. Now we'll talk for the next few slides and really quick, like some of the reference architectures we can put together for solving some common use cases. Let me first start with indexing and searching the documents. I mentioned this to you guys in the sense that if you have a lot of documents, first you want to send those documents to Amazon Techtrax. So you get your Amazon Techtrax text out of the call, but then you can orchestrate how often Amazon Techtrax runs with AWS Lambda. So you just set up a trigger that says, either run it on a schedule or run anytime a document lands in an S3 bucket and Lambda kicks off. Amazon Techtrax will then be called by Lambda with the text as the input, document as the input from S3, and you take the output and you can put the output into either Elasticsearch or Kendra or where you want to search for it. So the next use case here, you'll see that form capture reference architecture. You have an input. The input then goes into Amazon Techtrax. You get a customer application where the extracted text in some semblance gets presented to the end customer. And then finally, what you get is you can store that customer application stuff into a database. So a user submitted data is loaded into a database for use in tax preparation, in this case, as an example, or it could be for processing a healthcare claim, or it could be for any other scenarios that you could think of within the public sector. Here is an extraction for NLP, which is natural language processing. You want to extract text from a set of documents and use Comprehend or natural language processing to understand what they're talking about, or what is being referenced here. In this case, you have an input document coming into S3. S3 then through Lambda or other way orchestration calls Amazon Techtrax. Extracted text goes into Amazon Comprehend. and Comprehend then uses entity recognition or like, sentiment analysis or PII detection or any of those different pieces. And then you could then store that output into Elasticsearch or Kendra, and then a discovery for those documents becomes much easier once you're in Elasticsearch or Kendra, because a user can then go say, I'm looking for Form 191, or I'm looking for John Doe, I'm looking for cough and cold, and people reporting that from a particular city or county, and they should be able to get all those documents that are supporting text back as a result. So you'll see, before I go any further, you'll see a pattern here. The pattern here that you'll see is S3 for storage, Lambda for quickly triggering a call to either Techtrax or Comprehend, or in this case, we have Amazon EventBridge, which is another way. As soon as an object is put into S3, EventBridge sends a notification to Lambda. Lambda then process that using Techtrax in this case. But that pattern of going to S3 using SNS or SQS or EventBridge and then Lambda to call an AI service is a pretty common pattern you'll see across most of our AI services. So if you keep seeing that repeatedly, take that as a cue that it's a very well-established pattern and recommended pattern for you guys to do this in your own implementations. Here in the invoice and receipt situation, we'll go through the same exact process. Like, we'll throw our invoices and receipts into S3, have EventBridge tell Lambda that something arrived, and then Lambda call Techtrax, and you get the analyzed expense stored back into S3 for consumption. So I've showed you a number of solutions here, and then I've talked about reference architectures. I've talked about what Techtrax can do in different scenarios of public sector use cases. Somewhere I've referenced directly, somewhere I've kind of like used broad strokes, not mentioning the customer. But regardless of any of these solutions, we rely on partners like Idexcel to implement solutions like this for our end customers. So if you have a use case where you're trying to implement Techtrax and you want to use the best practices of doing that, here are all of our Techtrax partners, and particularly Idexcel to the right-hand side of the top. You leverage them, implement Techtrax, and then let us know what feedback you have for us, how we can make Techtrax better. I'll stop there with that and leave out some time for any questions that you might have for me, and hopefully I can answer those.
Thank you, Raj. So everyone, please feel free to submit your questions using the chat box found at the bottom part of your screen, and we'll make sure we address them in the session. All right, I don't see any questions coming up at the moment, but maybe later they'll have a few questions in the chat box. I'll read them out to you as they come in. So, all right, thank you so much, Raj, for that wonderful presentation. We'll now move on to a second poll that we prepared for you. So I'll go ahead and pop that out. All right. So we'll give you a few seconds to review and answer. So the question is, if you are using data extraction solutions, please mention the tool used for data extraction. All right, I'm seeing some responses coming in. Okay, looks like we have a divided audience. So about 33% uses ROSM. About 33% uses Altair, Monarch, 33% use other. So I'll go ahead and end the poll here. All right. So if everyone is back, thank you all for joining us back, and we will get started with Anand for his topic in the presentation. Take it away, Anand.
Thank you. If I can have the slide. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you, Raj, for joining us this morning and for a great presentation. We really appreciate your time this morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm actually in West Coast. I'm in Seattle, so it's still a cloudy, overcast morning for me here. My name is Anand, and I lead the digital transformation practice at Idexcel. I've been with the company for more than 10 plus years and have led various go-to-market initiatives within the company. And in the past 4 years, I've been focusing exclusively on AWS practice. And within the last 2 years, have been working closely with the team and our customers on expanding various superpowers within the AWS ecosystem, and machine learning being one of them. Right. We talk about the team today, the machine learning team. Today, we have a dedicated number of 12 plus data scientists, various core Python and Node.js programmers, along with full stack developers. And we keep on adding to the team, and we are aggressively expanding our technical strength as well. Most of our team members are AWS machine learning specialty certified, and we also have a dedicated RPA practice, basically complementing our machine learning portfolio. We are partners, obviously we are advanced consulting partners with AWS. From the RPA standpoint, we are partners with Automation Anywhere. And all of our RPA engineers are advanced Automation Anywhere certified professionals. Bottom line is, we want to make sure that our practice is built. We built end-to-end automation solution, combining both machine learning as well as RPA, and we call it, it's an intelligent RPA, and we call it invisible automation. And that's how we want our practice to move forward. That's our long-term strategy, is a combination of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and automation. So as part of that whole strategy, our primary focus has been within the AWS ecosystem. And within AWS ecosystem, it has been revolving around 4 key machine learning services. This is a slide that Raj showed in his initial presentation, where we have a combination of AWS Techtrax, Comprehend, Lex, and Recognition. This is where our core strengths are within the AWS ecosystem, machine learning services. And we actually keen on expanding that with more offerings around SageMaker and other tools out there within the ecosystem. Sometimes we also built custom machine learning models where we use Amazon SageMaker, and we create APIs for our models to interact directly using SageMaker endpoints, right? And one of the key things that we're going to be discussing today and the future slides today is going to be around our offering to the market, which is called AIDE. And it's actually built around Amazon Techtrax. But we also built some custom wraparound around Techtrax. I think Vish will be going deeper into it. So we actually built a pre-processing element to it, and then we also built some post-processing element. So we have a complete end-to-end solution, the combination of open source as well as AWS Techtrax. And talking about Techtrax, we are a Catalyst partner for AWS Machine Learning Services, which means that we work very closely with AWS labs, and we are also part of various GTMs and roadmaps within AWS Machine Learning Services. And then the last one is, we do, like I said earlier, we do a lot of open source AIs. Our solutions for our customers are built using popular open source AI stacks with machine learning models, computer vision techniques, natural language processing techniques, and neural networks, right? Some of the notable ones that we use are actually TensorFlow, PyTorch, Scikit-learn, Spacey, and a couple of others. And the last point here is about serverless AI solutions. And this is very important because this is where we see the real impact for the customer, right? AWS helps us build and deploy solutions on the cloud as a serverless AI solutions. And as you know, with serverless, you end up paying as you go for these computes and optimized machine learning training and inference services and infrastructure that you utilize. So you basically pay for what you use, right? So it gives you the flexibility and also the scalability to build high-powered AI solutions. And just to add some numbers to what I'm talking about here, by using the AWS machine learning solutions, customers have seen, reduced training time by 50%, have provide 90% scalable efficiency, have delivered 3 times faster network throughput, improved price and performance by 25%. And the key thing here on the open source is 91% of cloud-based PyTorch currently runs on AWS. 92% of cloud-based TensorFlow runs on AWS. So, as you can see from these numbers, there is a huge adoption of open source machine learning libraries within the ecosystem. Let me just skip the next slide. This is a very important slide. Before we jump into strategies and talk about our maturity model and assessment, I really want to touch upon this slide. And this shows our practice mindset and also establish culture within our organization. And this is one of my favorite quote from Jeff B. It goes like this, as you can see, if you are competitor focused, you will have to wait until there is a competitor doing something. Being customer focused allows you to be more pioneering, right? And this resonates so well with what we do every day and how we built our practice. You must be customer obsessed in addressing their core issues by inventing new solution. For us, we believe this is the right way to innovate in business. There is a purpose in this innovation and addresses the immediate market needs and a unique customer success story. For us, we are always looking for unique customer success story. And that's what our key differentiator is, various innovations and how do we address the customer immediate market need. So the message here that we want to share with all of you is based on our experiences, don't look at your competitor, work with your customer, identify their pain areas. And if you can solve that, you have innovations in your culture. All right, I think it's time to jump on to the key topic here. This is something, we do on a regular basis whenever we do implementation with AI. And let's take a deeper look into the AI maturity assessment model here. When we build this model, we really wanted to, do what's right for the customer, right? So we were formulating various models, and finally, one of the models that we were actually looking at was, how do we build this model? And we thought about, we wanted to go a deep dive into a whole concept of understanding why AI projects fail, right? It's not about how do you succeed. You learn from your failures, and then we were like, okay, how do we build these models that based on why AI projects fail? And then based on our experience, these were some of the key reasons. The number one reason was the lack of vision. What that means is there is no long-term vision of AI within the organization, right? You don't want to do an AI project just because someone else is doing AI. You want to do the right thing. Maybe AI is not a fit for your organization. And that's why when I'll go more deeper into the model, but we'll go through various steps and procedures and processes to identify where your organization fit in this model, right? The second and the most important reason why AI projects fail is insufficient data quantity and a bad data quality. This is very important. More than 70 to 80% of the AI projects fail because of data. And I'll be stressing on data for the next 2 slides, for the next 10 minutes, because data is very important. And without data, there is not much we can do. And when you talk about insufficient data quantity, right, there is a common misconception that, yeah, just feed 5 documents into the model and machine learning will take care of everything. No, it's not about just giving handful of document. You really need to, for you to have a robust AI training model built, you need to have tremendous amount of data to really feed the data to the model so that the model can learn by itself. Just by feeding a handful of document and assuming that the model is going to learn, that's the biggest misconception in the market right now. So we actually, explain this to our customers when we, as part of identifying the project, we want to make sure that do they have right amount of data, and not only the quantity of the data, but also the data quality, right? Because in this day and age, you have so many streams of structured and unstructured data that is thrown at you, and that's why you need to have the next line is the data strategy. Do we have a robust data strategy? A combination of data quantity, data quality, and the data strategy is very important. And these are some of the top 3 reasons why the AI projects fail. And then there are a couple of other, cultural reasons, lack of collaborations among teams, projects being done in silos, AI projects are not integrated into the mainstream solution, lack of AI infrastructure. And this is one of the other key things is, you want to do AI, but you don't have the infrastructure, but you want to build AI, high-powered AI solution. And boom, unless you make changes to the infrastructure, you are not going to get there, right? And then on top of this, the executive commitment, missing leadership support. And then obviously you need to have that human capital management to manage your key resources. So do you have the right skills of team members to really help your organization succeed in AI projects, right? So we look at all these stuff, and that's how we come up with this maturity model. So when we did this, what we actually did was, we looked at all these elements, and then we came up with 4 stages. We call this the initiation stage, the experimentation stage, adaptation stage, and then the transformation stage. And then they are benchmarked. You have your, we call it as pillars. You have your strategy, you have your people, data, technology, and implementation, automation, or whatever you want to call it. But these are the key pillars, and you benchmark these pillars, and then you identify which model do they belong to, right? So that's how we came up with this maturity model. Let me quickly give a one-liner on how we define each pillars, right? So when we talk about strategy in general is a long-term vision that is created for a company. It's basically the company's future desired state based on the business requirement or business vision, right? So for example, the vision could be like, okay, we want to build an automated machine learning technology-driven solution for all our customers, end users, right? So that's the vision that they want to do. So when we go into a project, we really want to understand how the company prioritizes solutions using AI and ML. What does the executive team think about AI implementation within the company? We want to see what is the feel that we're getting from the executives and how committed they are for the AI projects, right? So that's all covered in strategy. The next one is people. And obviously, people are the key critical resources for any project, whether it's AI or any project. For your business to succeed, you need to have the right people. Having the right people with the right skills, and most importantly, the right attitude and culture is important for building any strong AI organization. And obviously data, I know, as I told before, you'll be hearing me talking about data all the time. There is no AI project without data. And that's one of the top reasons of failure is data, and data plays a very critical role in building a good AI solution for any organization to remain relevant and perform at its optimal peak. You need to have a strong data strategy, right? As it is, it's one of the organization's most valuable strategic asset. So when we go into projects, we gather information on how their current data is organized. if the data accessibility is appropriate, is there ample data governance policy in place, and also, besides the quantity of the data, how good is the quality of the data? So these are all important points that we assess. We have a set of questionnaires that we interview various stakeholders, key stakeholders, technical, business, and then we assess all this before we formulate our benchmark on these pillars, right? Then we talk about technology. It basically, understanding, where do they stand from the infrastructure standpoint? Do they have the necessary infrastructure, the tools, and other components for development, deployment, and maintaining the AI solutions once it is built? So it's basically an assessment of their technical ecosystem. And then finally, we talk about implementation. This is where, how is the business planning on moving the AI solutions that is built into production specific, specific customers, right? Serving the customers. How much automation is involved? Are there any sufficient governance involved in integration of AI solutions with their existing solutions? And what are their deployment strategies? So we basically go through, again, same set of questionnaires, understand their ecosystem, and then based on where they are, we give them a recommendation on what they need to do. Obviously, it's a long process, but that's how we benchmark, and that's how we define these pillars, right? So once we get into a project, let's actually talk about the actual maturity levels, right? This is very important. I talked about initiation, experimentation, adaptation, and transformation. Now let's take a look at individual stages and see what is involved in those individual stages, right? So when we talk about initiation, the initiation stage is a company in this stage would not have an AI strategy. They would be still figuring out where to apply the AI solution. They would not have a prominent AI team, and members would be still working in silos, right? So since they're working in silos, the AI responsibilities are completely decentralized. Their data may be scattered all over the place, and it may not be AI ready. And there's a difference between data and AI ready. The data may be scattered and not AI ready, like I said, and then it could be only used for your traditional reporting, like your traditional data warehousing reporting, but it cannot be used for model building or anything like that. And they would not have identified any business use cases, and there would be a clear lack of governance within that ecosystem, right? So these are some of the key benchmarks that we identify for the initiation phase. Just a quick thing, most of our customers that we work with, mostly it's on the SMB side. We have a couple of enterprise customers, but mostly on the SMB side, they fall between the higher initiation spectrum to the mid experimentation spectrum, right? So that's where most of them fall into the category, especially on the SMB side. And then they definitely want to be on the higher end of the adaptation side, right? Adaptation side. So that's where we see the market trend right now, at least the customers that we are interacting with, right? So let's quickly talk about experimentation stage. So this is a fun stage, because this is where actually companies get really excited about AI. Because by now they'll be running some proof of concepts. They would have some team members specific for handling this proof of concept. Some AI ready data will be available for these specific projects. However, they may not have a robust infrastructure, AI ready infrastructure. So they will be running these POCs on personal desktops or laptops. They would have definitely identified some business use cases. That's why they're running this POC. And then, they must have found some initial success running these POCs, and they would have already used some internal or external third-party beta users to actually test these POCs. So this is where actually everybody gets excited about AI within the organization. Now, talking about adaptation, right? This is very key cycle. This is where you make or break your AI vision and organization strategy, right? Because now companies, they must have already done some small POCs. Now they have already realized the benefits of running an AI solution. Now is the time for them to get the executives involved, right? And this is the key thing. And this is, I'll talk about one strategy in the next slide. But executive commitment to your AI projects is very key. So now you get the executives involved here, and then try to push for a short-term to mid-term strategy. Anywhere between 2 to 3 years is the vision, is a planning. And then they would have already invested in hiring talent with strengths in specific data science skills. The executives would have been completely aligned with AI goals. So you have the executives sign off. And by now, they would have already invested in specific data labeling teams, and would have moved most of their data into specific data warehouses or data lakes, which could be consumed for further analytics. So all the things are moving right now, right? By now they would have already identified some partners or companies to enable for faster development, deployment, and even model training for that matter, right? And then obviously, agile is very important. That's also part of our success criteria, which I'll talk in the next slide. By now, in this stage, they should have already have a robust agile development process covering the complete AI development lifecycle. So this is where the whole thing comes together. And this is where we see most of our enterprise customers, in the adaptation phase in what we do today. And then finally, we talk about transformation stage. This is where everybody wants to be, but it's very hard to be at this stage because you have to be completely committed. The whole organization has to be restructured to be where we are. This is the most mature state where companies would be using the full potential of AI to drive business decisions and outcomes. They definitely will have a clear long-term AI strategy covering several business units in the company. There will be roadmaps of potentially adding new additional service offerings and solutions down the line. The important thing here is they would definitely have a dedicated AI budget that covers all expenses for AI projects, right? And budget is very important. And then team, they would also have a dedicated architects for driving the AI solutions, and a center of excellence is already established, and you have dedicated team members working as part of center of excellence, COE, and driving these projects. And the most important thing is they would have a precise data strategy in place, which includes focus on improving the quality of the data. And that's very important because by now, you're looking at structured and unstructured data, and you really need to look at the quality of the data. So they would be well versed in having this data strategy. And obviously they'll be using advanced tools for development of automated, scalable, reusable, and human in the loop AI solution. And human in the loop is very important because that shows the maturity of your AI organization. Human in the loop component will ensure that AI is always monitored for fairness, and it's non-biased in its predictions and all that stuff. So it's very important. And then by now, they would have cross-functional solutions which will be built and shared across several different teams within the organization, right? So this is how we define, how we allocate and how we define the customer where they are on their maturity model. And most of the customers that we work through, it could be it's different for every customer. For some customers, it could be just a couple of hours, 3 to 4 hours on the phone, trying to understand where they are. For some customers, it's an on-site engagement for 2 to 3 days or even a week, depending on how big they are and how big their infrastructure and how many different stakeholders that we need to have conversation to get to the maturity level. So this is an ongoing, engagement that we do with the customers to identify where they are before we even jump into any kind of AI projects, because this helps us set the benchmark to see where they are and then also provide recommendations. So I have one more slide here, and this slide, it basically covers what I talked about in the previous maturity model, but this is basically our recommendations. Some of the learnings that we have, that we have experienced doing actual implementation with customers. And these are some of the key areas. We divide this into 5 success pillars. And most of them are already covered in our maturity model. We want to make sure that our success pillars are aligned with the maturity model, and that's why they're already covered in the maturity model. But I'll just quickly, I'll take 2 minutes of the time to quickly run through what these 5 success pillars are for us, and what kind of recommendations that we give our customers, right? So number 1, and we talked about strategy. This is not data strategy. This is overall strategy. So what do we mean by one strategy? It's basically championing AI culture within your organization across all functions, right? The number 1 essential principle in building digital transformation using AI, is to develop a clear strategic clarity and commitment within the organization. It has to be all hands on the deck. If you're going to do AI, you better have complete support, not only from your executive, but also from your team. And you have to make sure that everybody is knowledgeable about what you're doing, right? So if the executive leadership is not fully committed for long term, you will fail. There's no question about it. All right. You may do some small POCs here and there and show some reports and all this stuff, but if there's no commitment from the executives, there's no moving forward, right? So that's very important. That's why the efforts must be championed at the highest level with a clear, compelling vision and investment in technologies, right? One thing I want to add here is, according to Gartner, the global business value derived from artificial intelligence, AI alone, right, is projected to reach around $3.9 trillion by end of 2022. So that's the amount of business value that the market is expecting out of artificial intelligence, right? And there's also this quote from Jeff Bezos in one of these remarks event a couple of years back, where he touched upon the value of machine learning, right? And his quote was like, machine learning will empower and improve every business, every government organization, every philanthropy. Basically, there is no institution in the world that cannot be improved with machine learning. So as you can imagine, there is a tremendous opportunity for organization to embrace machine learning. And for the teams to actually unlock the full business potential of machine learning, it will require substantial cultural change. Believe me, this is something that we always go across when we go to a customer side. 10 people will be really enthused about this, but then you have 20 people who are pessimistic about how do we do this. There's a lot of things, and that's why you need to have that executive champion to come in and set the expectation and also give a clear commitment and a vision for the entire organization, right? So that's what, when we say one strategy, we want all hands on deck for one strategy. Obviously, Agile AI, this is something that everybody knows about it. Agile, it's a fundamental shift in mindset, and adoption of Agile approach across organizations must for success of AI projects. First of all, why do we use Agile, right? Agile is best used for projects where you have crappy requirements. It's a poorly defined requirements. Scope is not, keeps changing, and how do you usually succeed? That's where Agile comes in, right? So how do you succeed in these projects? You have continuous and cyclic iterations that leads to rapid discovery. So when you leads to rapid discovery, you have the ability to fail fast, and then you learn from your failures. So the key word here is fail fast. Right, and that's where Agile comes in, and that's why Agile is a great tool to unlock for your Agile AI. And of course, with Agile, you have additional benefits, faster go-to-markets, competitive advantages, better collaboration, and better proliferation across the organization. But at the end of the day, if you want your org to be AI-centric, the key here is that, developing a product-focused mindset using Agile is an absolute must for any organization trying to be AI-centric, right? So that's why we touch upon Agile AI. Talk about data. I think I've talked about data for a long time, so it's very, very important, data and infrastructure. One quick thing I want to point out here is the right data strategy for machine learning should always aim to break down silos, enable IT teams to easily, quickly, and securely access and collect the data, right, that they need. And for example, most of the customers, medium-sized to enterprise customers, they have started using data lakes, right? Data lakes has become increasingly common, and it's one of the most efficient models out there in the market, right? The data lakes offers you more agility, flexibility than your traditional data warehouses, allowing companies to manage multiple data types from wide varieties of data source and to store the data, whether structured or unstructured. It could be coming from your social media platform. It could be coming from your CRM. It could be coming from your end user, wherever it is. It could be structured, unstructured, wherever it is. You're able to manage different data types from different variety of data sources into one central repository. And then you run analytics and build models based on the data, right? So that's why that data strategy is very important in an organization to be successful. Then the next one is people and technology. We talked about human capital management. It plays a very key role in success of AI. Without people, without the right skills, without subject matter experts, there is no AI projects. So we really want to make sure that we are able to build that, people skills and also the technology adoption and infrastructure. And then last point here, I just want to talk about this is start small and scale. One mistake that we see commonly across most of our customers is, they make this mistake of in their machine learning journey, they go and hire these data scientists, and then they have these data scientists work in silos to build the machine learning models as proof of concept. Rather than actually solve a real world business problem, right? So what happens here is when there is no business problem use case taken into solving these POCs, then the IT executives will find it very difficult to demonstrate the value of machine learning projects within the organization, right? So this can even stall or even end the machine learning initiatives, right? So what we always encourage is, take after the few successful projects, pilots, organization must take that next step towards sustainably scaling machine learning projects across the business. And that's the only way, and identify some key business cases that brings you immediate gain, and then show some value to executives so that they can actually commit to AI within the organization, right? So that's basically I have in the slides. One final thought, purely based on our experience, machine learning for us or everybody, it's an iterative process, right? One which can only succeed through constant experimentation. There will be mistakes made. Believe me, there is going to be tons of mistakes made. But the organization will have to look beyond these mistakes. And this is perhaps the most important cultural shift that is required. That is fault tolerance, right? Gracefully handle failures, right? Because you need that freedom to experiment in AI. Only by tolerating these failures can the organization successfully cross over to the other side, right? And this is some of the success factors that we have seen from our engagement with customers. And these are some of the best practices that we learn and then that we recommend to our customers as well. So I think that's all I had on my slide for my presentation. Again, thank you all for coming, and thank you for your time this afternoon. I'll just now hand over to Vish and his team for the demo and presentation. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Anand. That was fantastic, especially that last piece that you mentioned. All right, so everybody will go ahead and look at the third poll that we have set for you. It should be appearing on your screen now. There we go. So can AIDE capabilities mentioned in the previous slide solve your organization data extraction problem? Yes, no, maybe, not applicable. All right, we'll give you a few more seconds to review and answer. We're seeing some maybe, so over 60% says maybe. Maybe AIDE capabilities can help solve their organization or the problems in their organization. About 30% said that it's not applicable for them. All right. So I have closed that poll and we'll move on to our next slide. So I will now transfer over to Viswa, who will walk us through a demo and some of the AIDE use cases. Take it away.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think you have had a fantastic morning so far, where we had the first topic from Raj Karyala, who gave us a detailed walkthrough on Amazon Techtrax, and then Anand did give us a brief overview of Idexcel strategy for digital transformation using AI. I think so. Now let's look at some use cases for public sector. And how can AIDE specifically solve some of your challenges. So why did we build AIDE in the first place? I'm just going to take 2 minutes to walk you through on what made us to build this. So we identified some potential market needs and challenges, right? According to some of the projections that we've seen, unstructured data will be 80% of the worldwide data in 2025. And there are several variations that are observed in this data forms, like a text-based data, scanned PDF documents with printed and handwritten text, tax forms, free fill forms, semi-structured application forms, checks deposit forms, legal contractual documents, and so on and so forth. We cannot approach these with the traditional OCR, and it is expensive and time-consuming for organization. I think Raj, as well in his presentation, did mention a similar thing. Our need to build a smart end-to-end data extraction solution started with a discussion with several customers and understanding their common problems. So we looked at their existing data extraction solution and identified improvement of opportunities. They were all saying that the current solution that they're using is expensive, time-consuming, and scalable, not so scalable. So we came up with some of the common problems that they have observed. So the common things are data extraction solution was not tailored to their need, and there were additional packages that were required to be bought for a fully automated framework. A solution was template driven and requires manually defining the extraction limits. Automated components, as we discussed, should be bought separately. And the biggest pain point for these customers beyond all this, there were occasional errors which were not observed because there was no validation mechanism in the first place. The solutions require, besides all this, it cannot adapt for variations in template change. This means it is not capable of extracting without a human intervention at all. It also cannot classify input documents, classifying into what type of document it receives and so on and so forth. So for all this different problems that we encountered, we believe that, okay, we have a very important problem to solve, and which will have a significant business impact. And we just went ahead and built AIDE. So what's AIDE? I think I'm just going to quickly take over all of you for a quick demo here. Okay, so AIDE as a solution framework. This is our demo environment. Our login page typically gives us this. It has two broad capabilities. We've divided AIDE's capabilities into two broad sections. One is extraction, the other one is redaction. So I'm going to start showing off some of the extraction capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and browse for a printed document, which is a tax form. I'm just going to go and submit this. In the meantime, I'm just going to show you how the sample looks here too. So this is the tax form, a typical W-2 that we always see day in day out, and AIDE, once it's passed, once it gets this document, it's clearly able to understand the key and the corresponding value. We have every field that is identified here. It is now in a stage where it can be directly transferred to a downstream application, or it can be the result can be transferred as a CSV and can be used for further analysis or for anything else from here on. So this is exactly what we would be able to provide you when you send us a form like this. So we'll move on to the next form. So in this case, we're just going to slightly increase the complexity, which is a handwritten tax form. I'm just going to select that and submit. And for your reference, I'm just going to show you how does the input form looks like. Pretty decent handwriting, actually. Yeah, just like how Raj mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. Handwriting recognition is not so easy, and there is a certain amount of variability in handwriting. Most of the times it is able to do, but what we have built on top of Amazon Techtrax is we have built some amount of pre-processing and post-processing to ensure that Techtrax is able to extract as neatly as possible. And we've also built mechanism to kind of correct if an extraction is inappropriate. For instance, we would be able to understand if a date is not extracted correctly. We would be able to understand if address is not extracted correctly, and we'll be able to kind of fix some of those issues for you before we pass it on to your solution. So just like the other form, you see the key and the value is very clearly extracted, no issues at all. And all extraction is intact, which you can readily consume into your application. So that's forms for this. And I'm just going to go to now invoice and receipts. Raj, in the beginning of his presentation, he mentioned the different APIs, and invoice and receipts is one of them. So this is a sample invoice. I think you can see that the invoice is passed here. It clearly differentiates the summary fields and the line items that are they're part of the invoice, very clearly separated. And we will be able to using Techtrax, we're extracting it and we're just massaging the data to ensure that it is absolutely clean and neat, so that you can use it in the downstream application again. So we'll look at a quick example of a receipt now. I'm just passing the receipt now and hitting on submit. So very similar to how in invoices, receipt also has two different outputs, a summary and a line item, where the summarized set of values are on top, including time, credit, cashier, and a host of other fields. On top of all this, what we'd also be able to do as a customization from AIDE is we would be able to put checks in place, right? We would be able to put specific checks in place to ensure that if the extraction is appropriate, and then we can then hand over the output to you. So moving on to general text extraction, we'll now show you what AIDE can do. This is a simple plain printed text that I just snippeted out for the demo purpose here. I just inserted the text, and I think, yeah, the output is available here. So here, apart from extracting the text information, we are also able to do a host of other things. So here we have identified the different elements that are available in the text, and kind of whether it is a person, whether it is an address, and so on and so forth. We're able to do that. We also specifically able to tag which is a phone number, which is an address, and so on and so forth. So this is I'm sure really useful. So an extension of this is our legal document and contracts um, reading engine. So I'm just going to upload a sample contract, and I'm just going to submit this over to you. So typical contracts have a lot of information. It has information on the first party. It has information on the other party involved in the contract. What is the contract start date, end date, and what is the contract all about? All of these are information that we'll be able to extract for you using AIDE. And it just this is just a sample here. We would not want to show you an exact, a real contract here. So that's why there's a sample here. So we typically can do a lot more searching of information within the contracts as well. If there was a certain obligation that you wanted us to verify as part of the contracts, we'd also be able to search for that and highlight, and then so on and so forth. And the next one is things related to table extraction. I'll just show you a raw table extraction here. AIDE, which is built on top of Amazon Techtrax, has really good capabilities to identify a table in a very noisy document. So this here is actually a snippet that I've taken from a research paper. If you can see here, the table is actually hidden among a lot of text around the table. So we're able to specifically pick the table section, segment that section, and extract the table information clearly for you. So that's how well it works. So on top of table extraction, we've built solutions which can extract bank statements, which can understand bank statements, or which can even understand financial statements. So now let's look at an example of a bank statement here. So what we do is we are going to, we have built a solution which can take a bank statement and provide a summary of the bank statement, which can be used for, which are used by different organizations to kind of understand the highlights of a particular bank statement. So the thing that we're providing here is we're providing the name of the bank, what is the date in which it was issued, what is the validity time from to, what's the opening balance, closing balance, average monthly balance, and lowest balance. So we'll also be able to do a lot of analytics on top of the extracted table. But this is just sample for us to do. So we can also go to an extent where we can kind of categorize the spend into different categories, and that can also be displayed here. But that's one works. But I'm sure there are a lot of other possibilities that we can think if you have a similar use case like this. So we saw bank statement now, and there's also another use case which is very interesting, which we have built for another customer on the lending institution side. So financial statement analysis is a very common problem that is required for several lenders and several institutions to assess a company's value. So that's exactly what we're going to show here. So I'm going to open the sample financial statement here. This is a balance sheet and an income statement, I guess. Yeah, it's a balance sheet. So it has several time periods here. So let's take 31st of August 2018. I'm going to go over to 2018, August 31st of August 2018, and this is a yearly statement, I guess. I just have to select the statement and upload them and submit. So a typical measurement of success of a company, for us to understand that from a balance sheet, we calculate something called as financial ratios. And that's precisely what we've done using this solution. But before applying for us to calculate financial ratios, we would have to convert an input statement into a standard. So what we've done is, for each of the account names that are available here, we have tried to map them into the GAAP standard account names. And once the mapping is done, we then calculate the ratios. It's as simple as that. But the mapping as a option here is purely driven by machine learning. We built a custom model for us to. We've got tons of documents which we have had in the past So we've taken those accounts, we've hand labeled them, and we've understood that this belongs to account receivables, cash and cash equivalents, and so on and so forth. And if we receive a new document now, this can automatically map them into a specific account name. And once the account name mapping is complete, we then would be able to calculate the ratios for you. Now, this another added advantage on top of this, there are some components that we can also, we've got requests from our customers to calculate across a multi-year or a multi-timeline period. So for us to understand the cash reserve over a period of time. So those are also additional ratios that we can build, and we can actually calculate it for you and display it. And as a sample here, so current ratio, quick ratio, working capital, debt to assets, debt to equity, and tangible net worth. Some of these that we have tried to display here as a sample. But yeah, this can be extended, and we specifically would be able to add a lot more capabilities onto it. So we saw all the different extraction capabilities of AIDE. We're now going to see redaction as an option. Now for redaction, there are several different use cases that we have seen in the market. For redacting documents. So redaction is a key part, especially in financial institutions where the document travels across several different departments in the organization. So I'm just going to start off with showing you a redaction of a form here. So I'll let me just show you the form in the first place. I just will open it for you. So this is a handwritten form. If you see here, this is a 1099. And we have a lot of information that is available here, but some of these information, if it is passed from one department to another, need not be visible, or it is probably not required for another department to see all this information. And at that particular time, the primary department which receives this document would definitely want to redact. Hand redacting is not possible, so that's where AIDE was built for the customer. And so let me just show you an example of where the output is a PDF, and I'm selecting one particular field to redact, which is the account number. Sounds like a sensitive information, so I just click on submit here. And for now, we've built the redaction in such a way that it gets delivered to our email. So I'm just going to quickly hop onto my email here, and the redacted document should appear in my email in any moment. Looks like there's some delay, but yeah, okay, here you go. So if you can see here, the document is then sent back to us, clearly redacted, the account name, account number. So that's just one use case, but we'd be able to apply redaction to multiple forms and multiple sections of a particular document, based on. So in this case, since it was a demo, we selected it, but we could pre-program it in such a way that if a particular form comes, this is a field that is to be redacted, and for form B and for document B, these are the fields that are to be redacted, and so on and so forth. We can program it and we can leave it to redact automatically. And there's another type of redaction that we would just want to show to you, which is plain text document redaction. Now this is slightly different from the traditional form-based redaction, but however, let me just show it to you. So here is a sample. Assume that this is like a legal document, or this is some document which has a stream of text. Based on our early solution that we showed to you, we have the capability to understand the different entities in a particular document here. So let's assume that I want to redact address here, which I believe is sensitive information, and I select the address here. Once it is read thoroughly, we give the option for the user to select the list of fields for it to redact, and then we apply natural language processing and then specifically identify information that is required to be redacted. And yeah, so that's it. That's exactly how it works. So this exactly is what AIDE is for. So I'll come back to our um, I'll come back to our slides here. So as you can see here, AIDE is a solution framework that is built on top of Amazon Techtrax. It has the following, main capabilities. It's a customized solution which we kind of customize for every single customer based on their specific needs and their request. It can handle any type of document. It can be JPEG, PDF, images, another type of images called as TIFF, TXTs, docs, and any type of input document we'd be able to extract and we'd be able to extract from it or redact from it. So since AIDE is completely built on top of Amazon Techtrax, it uses all the popular AI stack it has with it, which are like the computer vision, machine learning, natural language processing, and neural networks. So we can customize your request specifically into specifically the way in which you want your output, and it is going to be absolutely template free. We do not we take care of the categorization internally. If you have over 1,000 documents divided, which are of 4 different categories, we can classify which document is what when it arrives, and we'd be able to extract it from there. It can handle both printed as well as handwritten text. I think we saw examples of both. And most importantly, we can actually include A2I, which is another Amazon service, or we can build a custom A2I if it's required for us to send these documents over to you for a part of the document for a human review or at a random sample and so on and so forth. Most importantly, since Amazon Techtrax, since our solution is built on top of Amazon Techtrax, it meets the necessary regulatory compliance like ISO, PSI, PCI, and SOC. And finally, apart from the initial setup cost, you just only pay for what you use. There's absolutely nothing else that you pay for. So unlike a traditional tool, you pay as you go. Okay, so some of the use cases that I would want to quickly walk you through here are is what we're going to talk. The first use case here talks about a capability on how we do extraction of tabular information. So I think we saw the financial statement extraction here. So financial statement, I think, as we all know, consists of balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statements. And these statements have a line of as a set of line items. And for a balance sheet, we know that there are 5 main categories or 4 main categories based on how your company lists. We have current assets, non-current assets, current liabilities, non-current liabilities, and equity. Within current assets, we have cash and cash equivalents, and so on and so forth. So the challenge that we had to solve here is to identify the layout of an input document. In the example that I showed to you, the things that we're trying to solve here is the following. Number one, we identify the layout of the document, and then we extract and map the individual line items into standard terminology, which I here refer to the GAAP standards, and then eventually create the ratios that are required. Now, this standardization of mapping it to a standard GAAP is essentially required for calculating the financial ratio. And most importantly, the document layout reduction is an important challenge to solve, since there are numerous layouts in which information can be presented. And most of the financial statements, I'm sure you would have seen, comes in the form of a PDF or an image. And it really helps the organization to do things in a much more faster way. So for one of the use cases that we did, we were able to save the overall manual mapping time of 15 minutes, and we were able to do it in seconds. This is a straight 15x savings in time, and we were able to produce results at a very high accuracy of 95% and over. So the next use case that we have here is for an, like the examples that we saw here, which is form-based document extraction redaction. Our customer wanted us to extract specific key value pair from a host of tax forms. We looked at several tax forms like 1065, 1120, 1120S, 1040s, and so on and so forth. The input can be either a printed text or a handwritten text, as we have seen before. Currently, this particular customer was using a third-party extraction tool where they have manually defined the extraction template for each tax form, which was pretty difficult for them. And if there was a slight alteration in the field, some of these tax forms evolve over a period of time, and IRS does change a little bit for some of these forms. It doesn't really differ a lot, but yeah, there are instances where it changes. But consider if it is the traditional form which is used in your organization. Of course, you do look at the form and you try to evolve the form. And for if there's a slight variation, and if you have a traditional tool, it requires you to do a lot of alteration. But with AIDE, unlike traditional OCR, we would be able to extract without further fine tuning as such. So Techtrax can accurately determine and differentiate if a key value arrangement or in the specific form. Usually key value representations are keys on the left and values on the right, but there are different variations in which keys on the top and the values in the bottom, and there are like different variations in which key values can be represented. So if with a few examples, once we train them, we'll be able to ensure that it understands for an unseen example in future. So as part of, so what's more important as part of the AIDE solution is this kind of mapping. We kind of save a metadata information as to where is the key and where is the value, and we build a logic around, even if we get an unseen document, we are able to understand saying that, okay, if whenever there is age that is coming as a key, the value is ideally supposed to be a number, which is what we're supposed to look for. So that way, we are able to we're pretty much able to understand for an unseen document, and we're able to extract information and accuracy of 95% and over. In regards to document redaction, AIDE handles redaction equally well as much as extraction. Solution can be developed in a secure environment, and just like how I mentioned in the features, solution is PCI, ISO, and SOC compliant. So that's how tax extraction redaction has helped one of our customer, and eventually the entire solution has helped reducing the loan processing time, by 10x from hours to minutes and seconds. So let's move on to the next solution here, and this is slightly a different variation of key value extraction, but here this is a legal document extraction, which I kind of showed to you in the demo. For a real estate organization, we had to build an entity extraction solution, which had to go through several contracts to extract the text related to real estate property. So what we built is we built a solution which can identify key entities like contract execution date, contract duration, name and details of the parties involved, sometimes even the price details too, and what are the entities that come under the contract, and so on and so forth. So there were several fields that we had to identify, and the problem for this customer here is that they had a data entry team that was doing the task for them. With the current solution, extraction time increased proportionally for the increase in volume. So there were times in which we had to bring in additional staff to do the data extraction. But with our solution, the customer was able to provide us with a good number of historical forms, and based on that, we were able to extract documents with a 5x efficiency. In building the solutions, we had to work along with the customer to align and agree upon the following things, like aligning together for experimental nature of problem solving, which is one of the key attribute which Anand mentioned in the strategy slide. So we'll now look at the last case study here, where I showed to you the bank statement extraction in the sample. In this case, we were fortunate to work with the Visa Processing Center for creating a summary of a bank statement. In the current scenario, this is done manually by processing officers for every applicant manually. The generated summary is critical since it is valuable information for determining the visa eligibility of an applicant. There were chances of error, and the task is manual, leading to longer processing time. But our solution that we built involved multiple components to provide the necessary output. Some part of the output is key value pair extraction, something like bank name and account name and statement date and something like that, which is on the top of the document. But the rest of them was part of the table. So we had to extract the table. We had to validate if we had extracted everything correctly. And then we had to generate the summary statistics, which is required for us to produce the output. So some of the challenges that we discussed in our previous case study in financial, statement extraction and form extraction, we borrowed ideas from there to be able to solve this particular problem too. So we're projecting that the solution, once deployed, will ensure that it is error-free and improve the processing time of summary extraction at least by 2x. So these are the different use cases that we have, and how are we able to achieve all of this? Our solution architecture is very simple. I think the key component here, the key components here is that the data is either fed via the UI or it is uploaded. It is a bulk upload in S3 or it is sent via an email. And we are able to produce output again in S3 or email or a shared drive, or there are like a host of different ways in which we can ensure that the input is output, input and output is fed to the system. So the most important thing here is we have a custom pre-processing and we have a custom post-processing. As part of the custom pre-processing and post-processing is where we need the data from our customer. We take the data, we customize a solution. We ensure that the document is as clean as possible for it to be able to be extracted by Amazon Techtrax. And once it is extracted by Techtrax, we then apply a post-processing layer, which converts the output into a format in which it is specifically required. So apart from us placing these documents in specific folders, we'd also be able to output in specific formats. It could be CSVs, it could be JSON, which is very popular for exchange of information between microservices and applications, and of course even in the UI. So all of it is completely taken care by AIDE. So we also can include an A to I system for feed as a feedback loop for a human to go review a random sample set of documents to verify if the accuracy of extraction is intact. So and most importantly, we'd be able to deploy it as a standalone application with a UI, or we'd be able to deploy the application with an API, which you can call for documents to be sent across and extracted. So that's exactly how we build our solutions, and I think I'll take any questions if there's any from your side at this point in time.
Thank you, Viswa. That was amazing. So everyone, feel free to submit your questions in the chat box at the bottom. For now, I'll go ahead and launch our fourth poll question. You should see it on your screen now. So question is, can you relate the problem in your organization to the use case discussed? All right. I can see responses coming in. We'll give everybody a few more seconds to respond. And so far, 50% said yes, And the other 50 said maybe. All right, thank you so much for participating in that poll. So we will now answer questions. Send them in to the chat box found at the bottom part of your screen. So while we're waiting for the questions to come in, I would like to thank our speakers today, Raj, Anand, and Viswa. Very amazing presentation. All right. We're not seeing any questions coming in, but any final thoughts for our attendees today?
Yeah, I just want to add something to what we as an organization have experience out in the market there, right? This is again related to my final thought here. People assume that AI projects are easy. They assume that it's a silver bullet, it's going to solve all their problems. But it is at some point, but there is going to be tremendous amount of changes that needs to happen within your culture, within your organization to meet that expectation, right? Data, we talked about data and again, because the reason I'm saying I'm talking about data is almost every project that has failed is purely because of lack of data. The quantity of the data, the quality of the data, and what exactly is the customer expectation with those data, right? There's a lot of projects where the customer just expects, they just give 5 documents or 10 documents and say, I want this whole thing automated using machine learning. Yeah, you can build a framework, but you really need that amount of data to train the model. And that is important thing is anytime you are trying to implement AI solution, the first thing that you really have to look at is the quality and the quantity of the data that comes there. And that perception needs to change. Is like AI can solve most of the problems, but you need to feed the data to the AI to do that. And the other thing is, you cannot expect overnight success with AI projects. It takes time. It takes time. It's a marathon, right? You really have to take baby steps, and that's why we talk about the 5 pillars that I talked about. Is the important last piece is scale up. I mean, in the sense that do small POCs, convince your executives, and then show them real world use cases. That's what's going to trigger the executives to say yes or no. Because don't just for the sake of doing it, pick up a use case that is really impacting the customer or the organization and show them the value that this POC can bring. And that's an immediate closure. And we have helped various customers get to the next level purely by picking the right business use case. It could be a small use case. It doesn't have to be an 8-month POC. It could be a 3-week POC or a 5-week POC. As long as you pick the right business use case and you have a story to tell to your executives and to your customers, you have a winning scenario, right? So that's very important. And finally, the last one, I cannot reiterate this. Machine learning is an iterative process. There is going to be failure, and you as an organization, as an entity or an executive will need to gracefully accept failures. And that's the only way that we can move forward, because I see a lot of projects, oh, we failed here, I don't think we have any chance. And it's not about that. It's about if everything is lined up and if you're able to learn from the failures and fail fast. That's why we have agile. If you fail fast, you discover your failures and then you move on. You have a winning recipe there. So you have to be very patient and you have to have that fault tolerance in your mindset. So anyway, that's all I want to add here. I really thank everyone for coming and listening to our presentation. And I really want to thank AWS for arranging time and sending Raj over for our presentation. And yeah, that's all I had. Mary, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Anand. So everyone, that concludes our webinar today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys.
Thank you.